traditional Woolston Way land, the land of Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between the nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Woolston, along which live Woolston Way, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders past and present, and descendants of this land. Good evening, everyone. Every year prior to budget, the government of New Brunswick allocates the community funded and equalization grant numbers for the upcoming 12 months. This grant consists of two components, a core funding component as well as the equalization portion. This grant is a crucial part of our municipality's revenue. Last year, our total funding for the grant was $601,260. This year, our grant has been slashed by over 56%. That's a hit to our community of $335,000. Bay-Westfield was the fifth hardest hit municipality in New Brunswick. This is not good news. It will impact our budget and how we are able to fund our strategic priorities moving forward into 2022. As a council, we need to have a full understanding of why we lost so much of our grant. We need clarity into the formula behind the allocation. We also need to understand why we are classified in the municipal group we are currently in, and if indeed this is the correct group for our town. It is difficult to understand without knowing more why certain municipalities receive very large grants while ours has been decimated. As examples, St. Stephen, a town of 4,200 with positive assessment growth, received $1.7 million. Paracat, over $1 million. We are proactive in doing our best to get ahead of this issue. Bay-Westfield, in order to continue our positive upward trajectory, needs funds in order to invest in our future growth. Last council meeting, we passed resolutions in order to truly understand what triggered the significant reduction in the grant and whether our town's in the right group for the grant calculations. I've been in discussions already with our MLA, and we will be meeting with the governor of New Brunswick on the resolutions passed the last council meeting. Planning for growth means more infrastructure, more maintenance, and increased demand on current staff capacity. This is a stretch with limited resources that are now being constrained even more. We need to know why. We are facing significant increases in costs. Insurance alone may increase as much as 25% this year. Our policing cost is expected to increase as well, possibly by a very large amount. Inflation plays a role in municipal finances just as it does our finances at home. Everything is costing more. We need to be prudent and responsible stewards of the public purse. We need revenue in order to follow our strategic plan and be in a position to help stimulate growth for our future. We're going to be moving into a full municipal services review of 2022 to understand whether the current model of providing services to the public is the most effective and efficient way of providing these services. And I will definitely keep you up to date on what happens next. Item 4, record of attendance. Let the record show we have 4 attendance this evening, and the whole house also looks like. Item 5, agenda approval. May I have a motion, please? Adopted approval. Councilor Billman, may I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Item 6, disclosure of conflict of interest. 6A, Councilor Giselle for item 17.
Correct, Your Worship.
Okay, now we are.
Your Worship, we're having technical difficulties with the presentation by RC Strategies.
Okay.
If we just maybe give them a minute.
Sure.
See if we can get it resolved. Or I think the shortest presentation may be by the agent, Seneca. 10 minutes, I believe, is what he's doing.
Okay.
The budget deliberations and the zoning bylaw, those questions could go longer.
Okay. So we can move item 7C up to the beginning?
Yes, if we could do that, Your Worship.
Your Worship, I'll just leave the council table and stand next to the presenter.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Ballard. Thank you. Corey, if you could just state who you are and the presentation that you're giving for people at home.
Sure. Good evening, my name is Corey Ryan. I'm the first Vice President of the Royal Canadian Legion Bayview branch in Bay-Westfield. The purpose of my presentation tonight is a presentation about the restoration or revitalization of the cenotaph of Bay-Westfield. We have my slide too. Oh, here comes one. Great. Oh, perfect. Thank you. We can start with the overview one way. And then okay, I just tapped. So our team for the cenotaph restoration project is the same team that we've had over a number of years, starting I guess in 2016, where our team began with the veteran banners in Bay-Westfield. It's myself, Jim Malcolm, Gary and Gary Davis. So that was our initial project we started with the team. We started discussions last year about an upgrade or revitalization of the Grand Bay Cenotaph. And as you all know, we did have the Glen Group out of Fredericton did renderings, which we'll show tonight. Those went to, we had a consultation with veterans, the Legion, the Indigenous population, and as well members of the town had about a 2-week period of consultation via the town website. All the consultations with the town residents were all positive. There was no negative comments at all from them. A couple of adjustments we did to the diagrams from their suggestions, but that was it. So really tonight I wanted to kind of do a virtual walkthrough of how we, in our talk with the Glen Group and with Jim, and how we come up with this year presentation or this year rendering from them. Click on it to get the first one? Or? There we go. So the first is just an overall aerial diagram of the entire cenotaph area. Sorry. I'll gradually walk us through this as we're going. I'll skip to the next slide. Right away. So here's our first. So as you enter the park, we will our entrance gate is going to be, or proposed is a traditional cedar post and beam design, designed by a veteran carver out of Fredericton, D.W. Carver. He has a number of designs that when I was in Afghanistan, he did some designs for us at the Canada House, and there's a number all over Canada of this particular carver. As you enter, you'll have Veteran Peace Park over the top, and along the sides will be a traditional Indigenous wampum belt design that's inspired from our consultations with Grand Chief Ron Trombley. As you exit coming on the other side, I'll show you in a very final diagram from the carver, it'll say "Lest we forget," as people are leaving the park. Next, we'll take a walk down through the center on the, what we'll call kind of the peace walkway through the trees. The trees will remain in the current position they are. Under each tree, we're proposing a LED light shining up into the trees to have a halo of light and to better light the park. These are LED lights that we can even change for different seasons of the year as well. So this could be something that we could, or the town could consider at Christmas time, of different colored lights in those trees, in those LED lights. Along the base of the trees will be a river stone mulch around the base of the tree. In the park now, there's not a whole lot that grows in that area anyway. just because of the dense trees overhead. So this will cause better drainage, as well as a better design around the base of the trees. As you walk in through the walkway, a new walkway of concrete, and at the different steps along the way, at 3 different phases, we'll have respect, honor, and peace engraved. In those, each third will be different languages engraved in the concrete as you go in. It will be more of a, what we would call a peace walk in through the park. Once you get to the head of the current cross, there will be a circular design at the very head of the cross made out of pavers with the peace symbol made into the pavers. At that point, there will be benches along the edge of the circular design inward facing, so people can have a time of reflection and respect towards the newly developed stones at the very head of the circle. Currently, there's one monument at the cenotaph. The idea behind the new monuments at the front would be representing World War I, World War II, Afghanistan, Korea, peacekeepers, those who served. On these, the thought would be as well, similar to our veterans banners we have at Bay-Westfield, for people to, in the community, have their veterans name engraved actually in the stone. So we have a record of veterans within our community right there in the Peace Park. At the head as well, we have the installation of 2 more flagpoles. The 2 more flagpoles would house the UN and the NATO flag. As well up front, we currently have in this area here 12 shrubs, which indicates representing the provinces and territories of Canada. However, we have 13 now, so we would have to plant 1 more shrub to represent Nunavut. Over to the far side, where we see the electrical panel. Some shrubs planted in front of the electrical panel, decorative to hide the black electrical panel on the side. Over on this side as well, there would be another cement pad put in place where we could have the podium, where we're having Remembrance Day of the services, a place where the speaker is defined location. Here's a better look at the walkway on the way, with peace, respect, and honor in different languages engraved in the stone. The peace symbol in the middle of the circle with more stone monuments and the 2 additional flags. I think I have one more than Troy. I can't.
May just need to go to your file.
Oh, wait, right down. Right there?
I'm putting the file over, so it's real over left.
1, 2, 3.
There you go.
Okay. Yes, this one here. The previous slide I will show you is the last feature that I want to talk about, and that is the retaining wall along River Valley Drive. So the retaining wall down River Valley Drive will be a highlight as you enter Bay-Westfield. The actual retaining wall brick would be similar to, or the same as what was used along Colonel Nace Drive on that installation. Along the top would be flowers of planted and shrubs, and one of the things with our consultation with Ron Trombley and the indigenous population that they had requested that we could plant some traditional plants and herbs that would represent the indigenous population, sweetgrass and sage. Along the other part right here, on your top of your wall, this is the Peace Monument, and the Peace Monument was one thing we had discussed with reference to Sculpture St. John in 2022. whether this peace monument could be placed here with consultation of Indigenous and veterans of things that, and the sculpture of what could be incorporated into that. So I think that is kind of wraps up my kind of visual walkthrough of our design. Okay. The
Can I ask a question?
yes, definitely.
Right now, there is a monument down there.
Yes.
What are you thinking of doing with that monument?
So our thoughts on that was to repurpose that current monument on the Legion property. Next to, we have a flagpole at the Legion property, would be to repurpose that monument on the Legion property next to the flagpole at that place as more of a private veterans monument right at the Legion. So not get rid of it, but repurpose it at the Legion property. Our thought on the 22, so what's the plan going forward? So this is not a 1-year plan, possibly not 2 or 3. It's a phased-in plan. And one of the things we talked to Glenn was to have all different aspects we talked about separate from the other, so we can work on one phase this year, something else next year, but it won't affect the previous work we've already done. 2022, our plan would be the retaining wall and the flowers as a statement to really show that we're actually doing something there, and to more highlight it as a different park other than the place at Christmas light. Okay? And the Veterans Peace Park, and lest we forget, sign at the head of the park entrance. Those are our thoughts on what we would like to do for 2022. So I guess tonight, what I'm really here asking is number one is the council's permission and blessing to move forward as a Legion on this project, to move forward with our phased-in development and restoration of the what would be previous Cenotaph Park to Veterans Peace Park. And the Veterans Peace Park will have, several aspects of veterans and the Indigenous population as a place of respect and peace. Along with that, pending approval from the town to go ahead with our plan, would be an official letter from the town, because right now I'm in the process, I have a grant application almost drafted up. There's a Canadian War Memorial grant that I can apply for. That's up to $25,000. My deadline is November 1st. So I've been working on that over the last couple of weeks, trying to put that application and wording all together. Yes, that's the end of my 2 asks. Is a request from the town to move forward and a letter approving that. Any questions from anybody else? Or?
Thank you, Corey. That was a really great presentation, and I have to thank you and the committee for putting such obviously love, blood, sweat, and tears into the presentation and to the renderings and all the work you've done so far. It's really quite something, and it's going to be beautiful.
Thank you.
Completed. When we have this as a presentation, the motion on the table would be to receive and file the information presented, and then I can open the floor to questions. Do I have a motion? Deputy Director, do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Dillon. We have any questions for Corey?
I just have one comment. I was really pleased with the public consultation on the website. I was going to ask you how that went, and I guess you've already answered that, but it was all positive.
They were
And the Indigenous communities as well.
We did. And one thing that's interesting on the Indigenous community aspect is we had talked earlier, and it actually came up in our Legion meeting last week, was regarding the flagpoles, and if we could have the Rbcc flag like in front of the town here at the Cenotaph, and I talked to John earlier this week. I talked to Grand Chief Tremblay today in Fredericton. So Grand Chief Tremblay is happy for that. He's honored for us to do that. So our coffee campaign actually begins this Friday, the 29th, leading up to Remembrance Day. So Grand Chief Tremblay is planning on coming to Grand Bay on Friday. He wants to hoist a flag at the center, next to on the New Brunswick flagpoles. So he's honored to do that.
Corey, I have a question about
Yeah.
the languages on the walkway. What languages are there?
Those were just examples on there. There was no specific languages. The gun group just put, I know there's Shalom, there's a few other languages on there. And that could be further discussion once we get to that part of the plan, of what languages the town would wish to. And in consultation again, what would the community like to see? What would the Legion or veterans like to see? For sure. And those were just a variety of examples. And I really don't know what all the languages are, to be honest with you.
So when do you need all this information? You said that you've got a grant application that needs to be in by November 1st.
It is a very short deadline on that Canadian War Memorial grant, and they need that by close of business on November 1st. Then they decide over the winter for work that would begin April 1st, 2022.
And if I may, Your Worship, Corey, because the town is the owner of the land, the committee requires that written approval from the owner of the land to undertake the project that the application is asking for.
Yeah, basically in the grant, they indicate that if you are not the owner of the land, you need a letter from the owner, and the other, that we're allowed to do that work on the land. So.
All right, so.
And that grant's been veterans and figures, yes.
So I'm just trying to formulate a motion in my head for you. You need written approval from the owner of the land to apply for the grant, and you need that letter by exactly when?
I will be putting in the grant application this weekend. So I have a few other things I have to work on that for quotes for project by Friday.
So you need that, and what is there was something else you said you needed from council as well?
Just permission to go forward, I guess, and if you're providing that letter, that would be permission to go forward. Yeah.
So if there are no more questions for Corey, if I could have a motion from council on permission to go forward with the.
Sorry. The original motion was to receive the funds.
Yes.
We should close that one. And then put this one into 11D.
11D? Okay.
And Your Worship, you forgot to amend the agenda to include 11C, which is not. Was it approved here? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that, it's on my
Okay.
running.
All right.
So we can move Senate project to 11D. That's where we'll amend, so we close off the receiving file and then make an amendment to.
And you know, receiving file, refer to it as 11D in the motion.
All right, so if I can have an amendment to that motion, receive and file the information presented by Corey Ryan and the Senate Committee, and refer the decision to
11D.
11D. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Thank you, I was going to say, sorry, Councilor McIntosh. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Corey.
Thank you, really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Are we good to go back to 7A?
Yeah.
Okay. Parks and Recreation Master Plan, RC strategies. Megan. I see Mike up there too, so we have Megan Carey and Mike Roma from RC Strategies.
Rbcc.
Oh, I see it. We also have the president of the River Valley Community Center, Tanya Oliver, up there as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Your Worship. Can I just do a sound check to make sure you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having us here this evening, and sorry that we were late, but it was actually good for us to hear that exciting park project, because it obviously fits in with the subject matter that we're here to present, and another good example of just an exciting project to make your community better, and I think that's what a lot of our presentation here is about tonight. celebrating the successes that you've had up until this point, but also giving you a bit of a roadmap as to how to, at Parks and Recreation, have even greater impact in the community and in the area. Joined by Megan Carey, as you introduced us, and we have a PowerPoint presentation that Megan's going to pull up, and we'll start to walk through. And again, our goal today is to present what's in the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Master Plan with you, tell you a little bit about, I guess, the journey to get us to this point, and give you the highlights of the subject matter that's included in it, give you a taste of what the future could look like related to Parks and Recreation in the community. So the agenda for our presentation is briefly to talk about the value of Parks and Rec, then just the process we've gone through. We'll start the real meat of the master plan with a mandate for the Recreation Department, and then we'll review a few strategic directions and then some implementation support that's also included in the plan. So we always start these master plans off with a good understanding, presentation, justification for why Parks and Recreation are warranted public investments. And I know from interacting with council and interacting with members of your community that you already believe that Parks and Rec is important in the town, but it's still good to have some of this down on paper, some statistics and so on to not only explain why these things are important to those that believe they're important, but also to maybe some people that don't. And some of our communities have people like that as well, and that's what democracies are. So this image here is just a summary of some of those environmental, health, social, cultural, and economic benefits that are achieved in communities, and those benefits are both direct. So if I'm a participant, I get some of those benefits from participating, and also indirect. And one of my favorite sayings is that Parks and Rec provides benefits that you cannot escape if you're a resident. So even if you don't participate, you're still getting some of those benefits from having those services in the community. So kind of a common starting point for all of these plans, but yeah, go ahead and go on to the next slide. In terms of how we got to this point, how we developed the master plan and how we're here in front of you today, there's a few different things that we did to understand the current state of Parks and Recreation in the town and in the region, in the area. So we did research into the community, we looked at all of the policy and planning towns done already, as well as other relevant stakeholders. We looked at trends and leading practices. We looked at how the town compares to other towns. Obviously, you have to look at the inventory of your facilities and understand how you deliver services and what important partnerships, like the River Valley Community Center, you have in town. We also did fairly significant community engagement. So we had a household survey, community group survey, and some interviews with stakeholders, as well as interviews with some of you on council and members of administration. And all of that information, our understanding of the current state, and I guess a collaborative analysis of that information has led to the reporting and recommendations that we're here to present to you this evening.
As we talk about the master plan document this evening with you, when Mike started the presentation, he mentioned it's like a roadmap, and that's really how we think about this. The document, which I believe you've had a chance to review and look at it really starts at the beginning. It sets that context for the current state of where not only Bay-Westfield is today, but where Parks and Recreation is today, and some influences that might be shaping delivery in the future. So the first few chapters of the report are really setting that context of the policy, of your demographics, and recreation and park trends and main practices. We then, from there, move on to start doing an analysis of your current parks and recreation facilities and services, looking at service delivery. And all through the report, you'll see key findings from our engagement program as well. So this is really, these first few chapters are really setting a context and a starting state. We then move in, which is really going to be the focus of our presentation today, is looking at the future of Parks and Recreation. So building on your core competencies of what positive elements are, what all the good work that has been going into Parks and Recreation already. So in Chapter 6, we present the strategic themes. So when we looked at the analysis of all of your current amenities, when we looked at the engagement program, and we looked at the trends in recreation, what were key themes that came out for us? And then tested those themes with the steering committee, and they provided some feedback to us as well. Building on that, we also contributed and we put together a decision-making framework to support the implementation of the strategic direction. And we also put together a new mandate, a role description for the recreation department to ensure that everyone was kind of on the same page and understanding exactly what the role was of the recreation department and the good work that they do in their community. In Chapter 7, we present the strategic direction, and those 5 key themes that we identified then became goal areas, and we identified key outcomes and objectives for each, and some recommended actions. The concluding section talks about implementation and evaluation of the work contained that you'll be doing to implement the master plan. And the appendices will be the kind of second point that we really focus on and want to introduce to use some key supporting tools that will help you to implement the master plan. So as I mentioned, one of the key pieces that in the document is really clarifying the mandate for the recreation department. This is something that we worked collaboratively with and tested with the steering committee. And it's really about building on those current strengths and all the good work that's currently happening, but making sure that we're conveying that the investment that you're making is about supporting residents of all ages and abilities, and that we're not just providing opportunities that lead to improved physical health, although that is really important, but your activity should also focus on improving the social and mental health of your residents. We know that the department is going to continue to have that commitment to providing quality programming, facilities, parks and trails and events, and that you do that collaboratively with community partners. And so this mandate or role description, we do recommend that this is adopted and that it should be reflected in all department planning, in job descriptions, and then establishing relationship with your community partners.
So based on that revised or revitalized mandate, there's a number of strategic directions that we've outlined, and they include what the goal areas of the master plan are, which maybe you alluded to. There's 5 some outcomes that would be ideal in the future if some of the things are implemented, as well as some objectives explaining the ideal future state, and then some recommended actions. And the actions relate to things, decisions you may make, policies you might adjust, and so on. So the first one is actually about inclusion and accessibility. And in this case, inclusion and accessibility is meant to be kind of interchangeable between the physical spaces that you provide and making sure that everybody can access and use those spaces, as well as the programming. And accessibility and inclusion related programming can be about financial barriers, can be about social barriers, can be about a variety of different reasons why people don't participate right now. So how we've presented each one of these goal areas is the green box, obviously the goal area is titled up on top, and the layout of the master plan is similar to this. The green box is the outcome that we want to see in the future related to inclusion and accessibility. Some objectives kind of dig a bit deeper in explaining what that outcome would look like. And underneath, you'll see a band of icons, 2 sets. One is related to the framework for recreation in Canada. which is something we wanted to demonstrate some of the town's strategic direction with that broader national recreation and parks movement. So there's 5 icons there. You'll see as we go through slides, not all of them are highlighted every time, but definitely at least one, if not a few, are highlighted to demonstrate alignment with that framework. And then there's also another national initiative called Parks for All. And same idea, there's 4 main areas, goal areas there, and we've highlighted which goal areas the specific outcomes, objectives, and recommendations align to. So as it relates to inclusion and accessibility, the implementation actions are creation of policy, some ideas, I guess. There's more than just these few, but one is creation of policy around this, training for staff and community partners related to inclusion and accessibility, and conducting accessibility audits for facilities and for spaces to make sure they're physically accessible.
The second goal area that we identified is communication and engagement. And so through the engagement process, we did identify that there are opportunities to enhance the current communication of parks and recreation opportunities that are currently offered. We know that by further educating and making sure that our residents know about parks and recreation opportunities, that will enhance the benefits and the positive outcomes that are coming from that significant investment that you're making in parks and recreation. I can also support drawing new visitors to your town, including allowing for some enhanced branding opportunities for the community as well. Part of this area focuses on also supporting your community partners and helping them collaborate and make sure that they're able to share their information about the programs they're running. Some implementation actions that are connected to this goal area relate to developing an online activity guide, to providing updated information on the website of current programming, but also mapping current facilities and outdoor spaces. And another recommendation relates to the meaningful engagement with youth and seniors to ensure that the program is meeting their needs as well.
The next goal area is optimization of services and facilities, which sounds pretty intuitive. We should be doing that all the time. This isn't to insinuate that you aren't already doing this, but it's just to highlight the importance of making sure we get the most out of our investment in specifically infrastructure, but also programming related to parks and recreation. So the types of actions that we've recommended here relate to, again, policy review and development, helping some of our key partners, one of which is included on our panel today with some strategic planning, and also looking more specifically at the feasibility of adding new amenities to, or enhanced amenities to your current repertoire in town. One being municipal beach area and possibly a multi-purpose community recreation space. So again, there's more recommendations or actions around it, but we've highlighted some of the key ones that we think were most relevant, more to read in the plan for sure. And you can see strong alignment with the recreation framework and again with Parks for All.
The next goal area is partnership. So we know that partners are really key in the delivery of recreation and parks opportunities. You know, municipalities are looking to form partnerships that are going to enhance service delivery and leverage resources. As we do, looking through the engagement work that we did, the research that was conducted, you do have wonderful community partners, strong volunteer base in the community, and it's really important that we continue to support those community groups to ensure that you are supporting their capacity and facilitating collaboration between those groups and between the community partners and the town delivery system. So some implementation actions that are recommended underneath the partnership goal area included some additional support for the recreation partners, as we did recommended an additional position of a community program coordinator. So someone who would work directly with these community groups to support some of their programming that they're delivering, and work with the liaison between the town recreation department and the programming that they're offering. We did recommend the creation of a regional recreation advisory committee, so a committee that would be able to provide feedback and direction to council on what is happening in the recreation landscape of not just the town of Westfield, but the regional community as well. And then recommendations around supporting volunteers, whether that be through additional capacity building and supporting, but also recognition. We know it's really important to ensure that we are recognizing and celebrating our strong community volunteers. So those are just some of the implementation actions, but there are more in that.
So the last goal area is titled sustainability, and this is sustainability from an economic but also a climate perspective. So you can see the desired outcome on the screen: parks and recreation facilities and services in Bay-Westfield are innovative, adaptive, and resilient, and then some objectives that kind of articulate that a little bit more. Strong alignment with the framework again, and parks for all. And some of, and I guess something else to note is both economic and environmental sustainability were very important to your residents and to the groups that we spoke to. So as they are, I think, in many communities across Canada, but we definitely heard that as a key concern from residents. Some implementation actions around sustainability, again, is to look at existing policies, but also develop new policies around how you kind of do business, how you possibly operate and maintain your facilities and spaces in terms of having maybe more sustainable practices, or always kind of striving to be more sustainable around that, but also to consider climate adaptation strategies in not only in your planning, but also program delivery, and just understanding the impacts that I think climate change has and will continue to have on the parks and recreation community.
So the next section that we are going to review is to speak to tools that we have developed to help support the implementation of the master plan recommendations. So the first one is our community lens framework. So this is a decision-making framework that we have developed here at RC Strategy. And so with each different community that we work with, we assess which specific lenses are most relevant and salient to your current state within your community, and then we'll develop questions to help the process of your decision making. And the overarching concept of this framework is really to ensure that we are not, in the decision that we might be making, having any unintentional barriers created or any unnecessary exclusions of specific communities within your town. So the premise of it is we begin with step one by checking our assumptions and how we might be making a decision, taking into consideration the current context and climate of the community. The next step is to think about whatever your decision you're making, whether it be a program, a policy, or developing a new process for implementing some of those recommendations that we've done, or just any decision that might be put forth to the recreation department. And so to think through then, we've highlighted 3 to 4 questions for each of these lenses to think through answering each of those questions. And so if you are able to answer each of those questions with a yes, then that question, that policy or program is good to go. And hopefully we have created a bit of a gatekeeper here to ensure that we're not unintentionally excluding anyone. If, however, you answer no or unsure, then you would need to go back and reassess what the scope of say, the policy. And part of that is about seeking out additional resources, so asking for help, asking
for information for people who may have a bit more experience or maybe actually negatively impacted by that decision. Right, we want to listen to our community members and ensure that we're giving them a meaningful and effective opportunity to contribute to decision making, and then learn from that additional information you gathered and make any amendments or changes that you might need to. So this is really, I think, a gatekeeper, a good way to think about this, and it's really to ensure that we're getting the most benefits and benefits to all from the decisions that we make related to implementing the recreation master plan.
So the next framework here has to do with program development and I'd say the design and introduction of programs in the community. And this is fairly intuitive. It's probably similar to how it's done right now, but it just wasn't kind of written down. And it's good to have this kind of a decision-making tool on paper, because then it doesn't only help the town make decisions, it can also help the community understand how the town makes decisions. So first off, if there is a new opportunity, you really have to decide whether or not it fits with some of that philosophical foundation that you have for parks and recreation. So that's outlined in the master plan, and it's part of what we've already presented tonight. If it does align, then you proceed to step 2 and you think about, can we find a partner? Is there an efficient or maybe a community-based way to provide this program or opportunity? If there is, then let's help that partner, or let's help kind of catalyze or facilitate the provision of this opportunity. If there isn't a potential partner, then is it something that the town might think about investing in through direct delivery? So this framework is really about the provision of opportunities and how to kind of screen those opportunities and see if there is potential partner involvement in the provision of those opportunities. The next one has to do with probably the hardest thing that Megan and I have to do in developing these types of master plans, and that's providing guidance as to knowing there's limited resources, knowing that we can't invest in everything that our community wants to see. We have to say that one amenity is potentially ranked more importantly than another amenity. And in order to do that in a transparent and logical way, you need to look at a variety of different criteria. And the criteria are listed in this table, and you can see the points that are allocated to answering each one of those criteria about a certain amenity and weighting leads to a ranking. And really what this will generate is, if you have $1 to spend and you've got two, I hate to use the word competing, but two projects that both cost $1 and you can only do one, this will help provide some reference point. It won't make the decision for you, but it will provide a reference point for what investment should be a community priority. And again, forces, the community and decision makers to think about projects from a variety of different perspectives, not just a personal experience or bias, or not just looking at even something like town policies, but also looking at a variety of other considerations.
And so the last tool we wanted to share with you is the logic model that was developed as part of the master plan. And so this is another roadmap. It is a visual representation of the plan, of the actions that are being taken. And if you take said actions, the outcomes that the community can expect to benefit from. So if we look on the far left side, we start with inputs. So those are the funding investment that you're making in parks and recreation. It's your town administration and recreation department. It's your community partners who are contributing. It's the knowledge that you have in your community, also the knowledge that is conveyed within Emily's master plan, the What We Heard report that accompanies this, and the strategic visioning sessions and workshops that we had with the steering committee, and then that overall coordination and oversight. So these are all inputs that you're going to be putting in to working on some of these implementation actions that we've created and outlined for you in the plan. These 6 high-level outputs are really kind of a summary, they're the buckets of the different recommendations that we've made. And so at the bottom, you'll see some assumptions. And so when we're recommending some actions, we do have to make some assumptions that go along with that, assuming that these outputs will be created and are able to undertake those recommendations. If you do implement some of the recommended actions, we do know that there's going to be some enhanced benefit to your community. So that first listing are some short-term changes and benefits that you're going to start to see in your community. If those are met, then we're going to move to some medium-term outcomes that you're going to start to see those really positive changes that are going to be happening in the community, all building to that long-term goal of ensuring that our residents and visitors benefit from parks and recreation opportunities and space in Bay-Westfield. We do know there are some external factors, and you can see that at the bottom, and those are just highlighting some shifts that might occur. As we all know, 2 years ago, we would not have guessed the impact of COVID and how that shifted things. So there are those external factors that can shock and change things, and so we just have those represented there to make sure that we're putting them out there. We know that they could shift some of those outcomes. So that is our overview of the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Master Plan. And so hopefully we've left some time if you do have any questions or ask.
Maybe just before we hand back to your worship, I just want to say, I wish we were there in front of you. I wish we could see you right now. We're excited about this work. We're proud of this work. That was a very high-level overview of it, and there's lots of detail and good in there, but we really appreciate the input and the engagement that we had with the community, with council and our community, with your partners, with your administrators. John and Gary, it's just odd not being able to be there in person, but I don't want that to in any way reflect how excited and proud we are of this work. So thank you for all of your help in developing it, and I guess I'll pass it back over to you, your worship, and handle the questions that you have.
Thank you, Mike and Megan. I just want to take a minute as well, not just to thank you, but to thank all the members of the steering committee that spent so much time and energy and passion into this project. I also would be remiss to not thank the previous council who got the ball rolling on this whole plan. We wouldn't be where we are now without their foresight and their commitment. The strategic themes of this plan really align with our vision statement, which is a welcoming place to live, grow, and thrive. It's a real roadmap to the future of parks and recreation in Grand Bay-Westfield. The decision-making frameworks, those tools to help us support making good decisions, good policy, good investment program decisions are going to be key going forward, as well as the implementation and evaluation tools. I also want to note that I really love how it aligns with those national frameworks to make sure that we're following national trends and best practices. We're not just catching up, but we're doing things right at the outset. So, I'm really pleased with this, and I think the positive change in the community that will come from implementing this plan over the next 5 to 10 years will help everybody benefit from the increased level of parks in our community. So thank you, everyone that had a part in this plan. So thank you. Our champion for community vitality, Stephanie McIntosh Lawrence, I know is quite excited about the plan as well. Stephanie, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I am very excited about this. I love the presentation. I had the privilege of already seeing this last week, and like I said then, the final copy of this presentation was quite remarkable. How it was strategically laid out step by step. It was easy to understand, and it's going to make it so easy for us just to jump right in and get to work. And I especially like the term that you use for Grand Bay-Westfield as an outdoor recreation destination. I think that's really important to get that term out there, so our residents and the region knows that we are an outdoor recreation destination. So thank you.
One thing I wanted to mention that I really thought was important was your focus on noting that this master plan focuses not only on physical health, but social and mental well-being, and I think that is key, so I really appreciate that. And I like the comment you made as well, that the Parks and Recreation benefit everyone, even if they don't participate, because it enhances the town, so I think that's something that is extremely key, because I know a lot of people, you don't want this because you don't use it, but everybody, it benefits everyone, so I really appreciate that as well. So yeah, this has been something we all were excited about, so I'm really pleased, and we can thank the steering committee because we're quite happy. The entire report is quite something. It takes a bit of time to read it. It's well worth it, so thank you.
John?
Mike and Megan, I just want to thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you. And just looking forward to maybe running through some of these frameworks with you so that we can better own them at a later date.
Thanks, John. Wish again we were there to shake your hand here today about this, and we're definitely able, even after our, I think I mentioned this before, and even after our contract is up with the town, we'll be able to help with the implementation or understanding of any of those frameworks, either with admin or members of the community.
Thank you, Mike. If we have no other comment, may I have a motion to receive and file the information presented? Thank you, Councilor McIntosh. Second. Thank you, Councilor Falcon. All in favor?
Aye.
Very minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 7B, Rbcc, we have with us John Weber, Tanya Albert, and Kelly Goddard from the River Valley Community Center.
Evening, Your Worship. Members of Council, I'm John Weber. I'm the treasurer of the River Valley Community Center. Kelly Goddard, our general manager here, and Tanya Oliver, our president, is here by remote. So this evening, just I've got the annual budget for 2022, but I just wanted to give you a few comments on what we've been up to in 2021, last part of 2020. We've got some new folks on council and new faces, so we've been dancing through COVID with openings, closings, partial openings, closings. I think we've done a really good job at it. Financially, being the treasurer guy, I'm quite happy with how we've got through it. Operationally, we've done well in keeping the maximum use of the facility we could, given changes in situations regarding mandates from the province, from Hawkins, Brunswick. During the year, we started in late 2020 and finished 2021. A room which was on the north side of the building, facing the field, Parker Field, was renovated to, as it turns out, to be used for programming by the Boys and Girls Club. There was an allocation of $25,800 in the 2021 budget to fund the startup of that program. And so the Boys and Girls Club started programming for, which was directed towards youth, basically age 12, 14, middle school, I guess if you will. That has been operating, they operated through the summer with some programs, operating in the fall with further programming and onwards. As will be reflected in the budget in 2022. They are not looking for further funding. We'll be using the $25,800 in the 2021 budget, but for 2022, Basically what the River Valley Community Center is doing is supplying them with that space at no cost to them, but they're covering the cost of the programming. So it's a very excellent turnout to that situation. We are currently a little bit in the middle of, we did have a tenant on the second level. They should go down the hallway on the second level from the lobby. There's about a 900 square foot room there that we did have a tenant there who COVID finally got the best of them, so they ceased to be a tenant, and we are basically dealing with another dance group at the moment, but also trying to work out something where we have a shared use, shared partially by the River Valley Community Center and by hopefully a prospective tenant running a dance studio. We're working on that right now, but hopefully what we can work in there is some recreation programs for ages 8 to 11 and have it available for other maybe sort of one-time events. Typical one is, you know, if a hockey team wants to have a party or they have a room available. So we're working on that. Our main tenant is the Blossoms Daycare. Excellent tenant. It's a great spot for them. They've got the facilities there, the little basketball court, town facilities that are handy. And they are, well, great tenants are ones that pay the rent and you like what they do and they do it well. On the governance side, we've had a governance committee which did get finally our governance documents in order. We're growing into them a little bit, but we have certainly now a full set of governance documents. We are running with our maximum board amount of 15 people. That is the maximum level, and we do have 15 people on the board. And we have now committees, governance, finance, recreation, fundraising, human resources, so we have some good bodies in all those spots. So we're looking good in that matter. So just I presume everybody's got a paper copy. I don't have a PowerPoint. The budget document, basically it's a one-pager, but just a couple of overall comments is the budget assumes that we will be able to function relatively normally with no stoppages and shutdowns due to COVID. If sometime in February there's COVID issues and the province says you can't have hockey games, then what happened last time was the adults said, we don't want to use, we're done, we don't want to go out there and skate practice. The youth carried on with the rentals. So that's just, hopefully that's not going to happen. And the budget is based on that basis. The main item that is affected by that is our major income, which is the ice rentals. I am budgeting for a loss, but in doing the budget, I don't put fundraising or unknown grants in as a revenue item. So we do have now a very solid fundraising committee, which in past years we did not have. So the $2,950 deficit for our fundraisers is something that is not done in the past for them. So I'm not concerned about some deficit budgeting. So I had just a few notes along the right-hand side there to explain some of the bigger items, but basically the ice rental revenue, our two main rates are $219 an hour for adults and $155 an hour for youth. There was a major increase in those rates in 2020. In 2021, we did not have any increase in those rates, and in 2022, I'm projecting slight increase in rates. The rates are usually, they would always be struck, I guess, during the summer, so that the hockey season sort of goes September to April. So the rate increases happen during the year. What we're asking for from the town is $108,000. That's if we consider that 2021 was an anomaly where we had 25,800 as to get a recreation program off the ground. We're not asking for that funding again. We had $103,000 as operational funding in 2021, so $8,000 is 5% increase. We're going to have, I think, some wage increases that all wages have been impacted by COVID, so not significant, but we may be looking at, instead of a couple percent, wage rates, particularly the hourly ones, may hit 4% or a little better. So we are investing in the recreation programs, and no other major issues are going to, I think, hit us, but the other revenue items, recreation is not the Boys and Girls Club, but it's our own non-ice recreation programs that we will be running. And then I've got programs which are summer programs which can be run by Kelly. And we run summer programs which we have done for pretty well since day one. Room rentals, as I say, our main tenant is Blossoms Advertising. That's advertising on the Zamboni boards, signage. The wage grants, which we have always received, are related to summer students. Canteen sales. Canteen was shut down for the last year and a half. Hopefully we're going to get back open, and I'm being conservative on the canteen sales. Events, in that would be things like our own hockey tournament we ran, dog show, which we did not run in the previous couple of years, again due to COVID, but hopefully we'll be back, and some interest on our GICs. So the main expenditures are wages, and as I mentioned, and it's not big money, but it could be beyond the normal wage increases that we've been able to, I guess, have in the past. It may cost us a couple $1,000s more than it has in the past during the year. Recreation, that would be anything to do with supplies or equipment, or costs to do with recreation programming. Skipping down to maintenance and supplies. So maintenance, it's not a cheap building to run. Not anticipating any, in past years, we've had some pretty significant dehumidifiers, condensers. These things could be $50,000 items. We're not anticipating anything major in 2022. Our plant has been maintained, and we constantly, we have Simcoe in there. They maintain the plant for us, and we've been we did a bit of a rebuild there in 2021, so I think we're in good shape. Heat and power, so in trying to budget that, we've been a bit all over the map in power costs, because when we're open with ice in, it could be $17,000 a month. When the ice is not in there, it could be $4,000 a month. So, not been consistent in operation due to COVID. So, again, I'm budgeting that on the basis that we're going to have a normal year. And then the other expenses are just standard ones that run pretty consistent from year to year, and I'm just projecting small increases in those. Just a couple of things. We do have a replacement reserve. That is currently we have about $195,000 in our replacement reserve. At one point it was slightly over $300,000, so it's designed for the major things. So 3 years ago, that new Zamboni, so we were able to acquire a new Zamboni. I think it was about $112,000. We paid for it out of the replacement reserve. That's a cushion to, I guess what my mantra is, I don't want to come before you folks and say, oh, Jesus, or during the year, sorry, we need another 20 grand to run out of money. We try and operate efficiently. I don't come to the town to say, I need huge increases. We try to remain pretty consistent in our operations. We are looking at we did have CBCL in to do an energy audit, which they did in late 2020. We've got some recommendations there. A lot of those are a good basis for a long-term look at the facility in terms of capital issues. So that's something that we're a little bit into it. I got to get into it more, but again, one doesn't want to be looking at $100,000 for a roof and go, I'm shocked. And the last thing I'm going to say is that I give a lot of credit to Kelly and the board for running the facility as well as I think it's run. So anyway, any questions?
Thank you, John. It's apparent that you and Kelly and the board have done a lot of work in the past year, and I just want to highlight that the partnership with BGC has been transformational for the youth in our area. So again, I'd like to thank previous council for investing in that. And just to give everybody an idea of what a benefit that is, the City of St. John pays BGC a significant amount of money to run these programs, and for us to be able to have those in exchange for the space in our center is really great. So thank you for all of the work. Anybody have any questions for John?
I do want to say that John, Councillor Bellman, has been on our board in the past. Your Worship, on the board for the last 3 years, and we have Stephanie on the board, Gary Clark. So we can't be any but transparent for
I have a quick question for you, John, and I should know this, but So you got the replacement reserve. Can you explain to everybody like how that reserve gets replenished? Is there a line item in the budget, or is it just if there's a surplus at the end of the year, how that gets replenished?
Yeah, what we've done is the interest it earns, it's in GIC, so it earns $3,500, but we do tend to leave that in, that builds up. We haven't, since the Zambonis 2 years ago, we have not put any additional funds out of operations in there. That is something, in my mind, I'm going to look at in 2020 when the COVID issue has gotten by us, that hopefully we can get some funds in there. We are pretty liquid. We have a decent bank balance. Never an issue with, when the bills come in, we can pay them. So I think in 2022, if COVID we don't have some sort of catastrophic shutdown, and I got to take the ice out of January story. Hopefully by the summer, we'll be able to discuss that at the board level, and I'll make a recommendation to get some additional funds in the replacement reserve. But in the last 3 years, we haven't put any in.
Anybody have any further questions for John? Okay, there being no further questions, the motion is to receive and file the information presented and refer to budget deliberations. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. May I have a second? Thank you, Councilor Bennett. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. On to item 7D, amendments to zoning bylaw number 122. We have Stephen Stone from the Dillon Consulting. Hi Steve, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Okay, so thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Council. My name is Stephen Stone, and I'm a planner with Dillon Consulting. I know some of you around the Horseshoe, and others I haven't met yet, so it's very nice to meet you. Just to reiterate, so tonight is the official public hearing for the zoning bylaw amendments as presented. So it's not so much my show as it is your show. So there's a few legislative things that you need to do, and you can refer back to me, and I think it'd probably be a better use of time at this point to maybe go through what was presented to PAC, what PAC discussed, and what their recommendations are. And then I'm not sure if this is going through readings tonight or not.
John?
I'm just looking over at data that's the way I would.
Technically, so.
Because I don't think we've advertised properly.
The public hearing is advertised.
Yeah.
So we're not doing readings tonight? Okay, very good. And has anybody registered to speak? No? Okay.
I haven't received anything.
Okay, so the public, somebody needs to open the public hearing?
That would be me. I will open the public hearing for the amendments to zoning bylaw number 122.
Okay, very great. Thank you, Your Worship. So what I will do then, I will just, because I know my colleague Jennifer was here, and she provided some of the background, so I can just quickly go over it again. So the municipal plan was updated and adopted in 2020. And within the municipal plan, we established a new vision for development within Bay-Westfield. It was built on significant community engagement that was held at the time throughout 2019 and early 2020. And it really set the stage for an updated and enhanced approach to land use and development. So that's where we applied a policy direction for your modernized land use rules, which we've then updated as part of the zoning bylaw update last fall. And now we're coming through with some of those housekeeping amendments, which is very typical. Once the zoning bylaw has been amended, you work it through for a year, and then there's typically some housekeeping items to follow up with. So tonight, it's a bit of a, so there's 16 total amendments, so it's a mixture of both housekeeping and improved approaches based on some work that was completed between 2020 and today, mainly on a new approach to development along the St. John River. And the amendments really represent a mixture of complexity. And some were brought forth by the development officer or others by the request of council as well. So just to provide a bit of the process, so my colleague Jennifer presented the original draft to council on September 27th. The development officer reviewed and provided several updates and corrections between September 27th and the PAC date of October 4th. So at the October 4th PAC recommended updates or changes at that meeting, and then those changes are identified throughout the presentation of the amendments here tonight. So I will sort of walk through what PAC recommended. If there's any questions, we can go through them. So PAC did recommend approval on the first and second amendment, which had to do with the introduction of a development permit fee. Amendment 3, which was including or adding in a definition of what habitable space means in development, and this definition was needed to help facilitate and add clarity to the new flood overlay zone, which is a later amendment. PAC recommended approval of this amendment as well. So amendment 4 and 5. So here's where there has been some changes. So amendment 4 had to deal with the definition of portable or temporary garages. So what the amendment tried to do, and this was really, there's some of the background here, so I can just sort of walk through. So this original amendment request is coming from the last council. So during the legislative process of the zoning bylaw last fall, PAC requested that 6-month time frame for portable and temporary garages that the council had recommended, which was to have them from October 30th to April. So PAC disagreed with that approach. PAC recommended against taking that language out. Council at the time chose to adopt the bylaw, do a bit more research on the issue, and deal with the definition through future housekeeping amendments, which is where we are today. So now the current council and staff requested that the language be updated to better reflect PAC's original review and request. The current PAC, when presented with the updated language, did not recommend the proposed amendment. So as you can see in this table here, so the existing definition is portable or temporary garage means a collapsible structure covered with plastic or fabric used for the purpose of temporarily storing vehicles and or the coverings of driveways. So the proposed definition that we presented to council back at the end of September included, so the definition means a collapsible structure covered with plastic or fabric used for the purpose of temporarily storing vehicles and or the coverings of driveways in the side or rear yard and behind the building line of a residential lot between October 30th and April 30th inclusive. So that was what was presented then, and then the proposed definition that was presented to PAC based on council's view at the last council meeting decided to, you wanted to rework the definition a bit to try to capture what the previous PAC wanted in 2020. With staff, we came up with this definition. So after the covering of driveways, in the side or rear yard and behind the building line of a residential lot for a time frame not exceeding 6 months. So the idea here was to ensure that the quality of the structure could be maintained by applying a time frame to it. When we brought it to PAC in October, PAC basically recommended that the original definition that's in the bylaw as it exists today remains there. So in theory or in practice, to not regulate where the portable or temporary structure is, and to not regulate a time frame associated with it. So that is where PAC landed. So I don't know if you want to pause and have a discussion on that now, or we can keep going.
Why did PAC decide to go back with the existing definition?
Yeah, so I wasn't at PAC, so I don't want to put words in their mouth. So I will defer to David on that one. However, I can speak to the placement of the structure, but in terms of the quality in that 6 month time frame, there are other mechanisms that the town has through unsightly premises to deal with an unsightly or ripped structure. But David, do you know why around the placement of PAC didn't like there?
The placement is captured in the next section, keeping it 1 meter from a property line.
Yeah.
So that would have been in there before anyway. The biggest issue with the thought that structures are used, they're all through the air. And if the issue is that it's activated, then the safety premises bylaw would be the mechanism that's already in place. Otherwise, the date that it goes up would have to be recorded to get that exact 6 month period, and you can have 500 or 1,200 properties with different dates going on, but it would come
Okay.
just confusion.
Okay. And so I believe the placement issue, you're correct, it is a meter away from property lines. But in terms of the language and the definition as proposed, it was, it can't exceed where your main structure line is, so it can't be basically in front of your house on the driveway. And I believe, it was my understanding that PAC just thought that was basically overly bureaucratic.
Worship, if I could add a little bit more to it, I'm the council rep on the PAC. So my recollection for the reason for the change, Mr. Taylor was absolutely right in what he said, but also the concept of a temporary shelter, it is used for many different reasons by different people. As you said, we have a mechanism in place around unsightly premises. It's our understanding that the shelters of today are built much better and safer than when the original bylaw may have been written. And also the alternative in having a landowner not have a place to store their snowmobile or their snowblower, their canoe, whatever it is. If they still have it and don't have a safe place to put it in, not everybody has a structured garage. The alternative would be an unsightly mess, maybe possibly under a tarp, but it would be worse than having it all in one shelter. And there's another reason as well, David alluded to it. Our development officer has a big responsibility to have, and we, as PAC, felt that the use of Mr. Taylor's time to inventory and constantly police where the structures are is not a good use of his time for the big responsibility that he has with our town. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councilor.
Keep going. Okay, so then, and David's right, so this next amendment here has to deal with, so that one had to deal with the definition, this one has to deal with the standard. So the proposed amendment was to include within that, within the actual provisions of the bylaw, to include the language around time frame. So between October 30th and April 30th. And now we'll sort of walk through what the existing standard is, which does not have that time frame associated with it. The proposed standard that was presented to council at the end of September included that time frame, October 30th to April 30th. The proposed definition that was presented to PAC based on the outcome of council was that 6-month contiguous language. And then the PAC recommended basically to put it back to the way it was. So a meter away from property lines or a front yard and side yard setback, and then to remove any language around a time frame or the temporary structure. So amendment 6 through 8 have to deal with self-storage facility definition and permitted zones. So this one was to add clarifying language in there around differentiating between commercial self-storage facilities, which would have an internal hallway, and then more industrial self-storage facilities, which you would drive up and the exterior access for the storage facility. And PAC recommended approval of this one. So within the central commercial zone, we added self-storage facility, the commercial use one, as a conditional use. And then in the highway commercial zone, we added both the commercial use and the industrial use as conditional uses as well. So again, not as of right, they're discretionary or conditional uses. So they would have any application for a self-storage facility would have to be considered by PAC. And PAC recommended approval of this language change as well. Amendments 9 through 11 deal with the changes to the supportive housing definition and permitted zones. So amendment to section 3 within the zoning bylaw, which is the definition section. And this is to review the language or review the definition for supportive housing. So to increase the maximum number of beds or residents from 9 to 15. There was an error when this was presented to council last time. So it was, as it was presented last time, it was, the language was supportive housing facility. So it's either, you have two definitions for supportive housing type facilities in the community. It's either supportive housing, which are your special care homes, so maximum of 15 beds, or a supportive facility, which are your larger, your Shannock style developments. So there was an error in the original documents that were brought forward, and it read, it sort of had both of them in there, supportive housing facility. So before we got to PAC, we cleaned that up and just included supportive housing and then supportive facility where it was intended for. So the proposed standard that was presented to council, I don't believe there are any changes with this one. So it was to add a conditional use to add conditionally supportive housing facilities within the rural residential zone, and PAC recommended approval of that one. And then for your supportive facilities, so your larger style facilities, for this one here, so this one is not a conditional use. This was, as it was presented to council in September, it was to include it as a permitted use, so an as-of-right development within your mixed use zone. And PAC recommended approval of that amendment as well. The 12th Amendment has to deal with the addition of a minimum floor elevation to your general provisions. And again, this is to facilitate the flood protection language that we've added in the bylaw. PAC recommended approval of this. We clarified some of the language to home occupation standards. So in the bylaw, it read home occupations shall be subject to the following requirements. We just cleaned that up to be consistent with the other provisions in there and added in where permitted in this bylaw. And PAC recommended approval of that. Amendment 14, this was to change some of the language within the rural resource zone. So in this zone, what this amendment was getting at was throughout the plan, we've heard from folks time and time again around the ability to do something to their land west of Highway 7. So where we landed last time, and I think this was just an error in the zoning bylaw update, was to add in language around permitting a second one-unit dwelling on a lot within the rural resource zone, but only on those lots that have frontage on Narrapus Road. So we cleaned up that language there. And then the more significant or complex amendments had to do with adding in a new overlay zone. So we added in a flood overlay zone. The intention here is to promote sustainable development, ensure public safety, and to prevent damages to people's structures and the environment. So through provisions and standards that are written into the provisions of the flood overlay zone, the intention here is to only permit development when it demonstrates an adaptation to flood risk. And the Community Planning Act does permit the use of overlays and provides direction for PAC to evaluate applications within areas that are prone to flooding. So this applies to all properties that have an elevation below 7.4 meters along the river. It's applied over the existing zoning, so it doesn't matter if somebody's R2, R3, or commercial. The provisions for the flood overlay zone applies to any of the zones that are under it. It moves any uses in that area from permitted uses to conditional uses, so they require a PAC application. It applies standards for new construction and the expansion and modification of existing structures. Does not apply to accessory structures, open space uses, or temporary uses, which are permitted in the bylaw. And it's areas that are depicted in Schedule B. And so Schedule B of the bylaw is your flood overlay zone. And here's some snapshots of what that zone is as well. So that is it. So I'd be happy to take any questions. I don't know if you want to. Nobody registered, but I know you do have to ask for objections and read it into the record.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. Does anyone speak in favor of the amendment? Or
I guess I have a question. Well, why did it become a 7.4, why did you go by the province standards?
So the province doesn't have standards.
I thought it did have standard. But does Rossi have standard?
Yeah, that Rossi developed.
So did they go to 7.4 or is it 6.5 or?
I'm not sure what Rossi's standard is, but different, sorry?
It's the same body of water.
Same body of water, but different elevations.
You don't know, yeah.
Well, different impacts as well.
Is it?
Yeah. So we went through and did 1 in 100 year flood mapping, and I believe it got to 6.4 meters in your most vulnerable areas. And then we looked at wave fetch. So the distance between West St. John across South Bay, in theory on a windy day, so taking not an extremely windy day, but a reasonably windy day that we could expect, the wave height in that area could be at least, I believe it was a foot or more. So what we did was rather than have the elevation just be at that 6.4, we increased it by a meter to apply an additional protection. And when we did the mapping, so the amount of land that's covered by 6.4 versus 7.4, it's actually not that much.
So what standard you want, like 2 standards, like on a map, like there's a CGBD28, and there's a CGB 2013. Which is one which?
I'm not sure what's
I have a map, elevation target, 2 different elevation zones.
I don't know, I'm countervailant, I'm not sure of that. That's not a map that we produce, so I can't.
Yeah, so you'll send the new standards, they're all done either.
John?
So I was just gonna say, Ross is increasing the elevation requirements. And I don't know, I know I was told, I don't recall what it is offhand, so they are increasing it. And I know we spoke with Bill, and I believe we discussed this in February, March, if I'm not mistaken. 1 in 100 is occurring seemingly more frequently. And our concern was erring on the side of caution, because it does affect a lot of different aspects of the town's operations in our capital planning. So we felt on a conservative side it's more prudent to go just a little bit higher. But again, I don't believe it'll affect your house or an existing house. It's the new builds that I'm most concerned about at this time.
So in terms of insurance rates too, because you're in the 7.4, below 7.4 now, will it affect your insurance? For the house insurance?
For the new house or
the existing house or your present house?
Yeah, I can't speak to that, but I do know that whenever a home is in a suspect area, for slumpage, flooding, wildfire area near Eglinton or something like that, there is going to be a cost to that. There is no doubt about it. But that's balanced off too by what cost does the community incur for buildings, facilities, and other infrastructure that are put in a risk-prone area. So it is, how are we going to balance it off? And we're not going to please everybody, Councilor.
And the flood overlay zone and the elevation change to 7.4, it speaks to sustainable development and also public safety. And the difference between 2018 and 2019 with respect to the flooding in 2018, the wind was going that way. And we didn't see the waves hitting the houses here in Bay-Westfield. In 2019, it was a different story, and the damage was different. So it's important that we recognize that. Have any other questions? So I think I have to say if anyone speaks in favor 3 times and the same thing for the contrary. So I'll do that now. We have no other questions for Stephen.
Your Worship, just maybe before we do the public reading, did you want to have a discussion on the length? So the language that we're presenting tonight at the public hearing, we're presenting basically options, right? Because PAC made some changes for 2 or 3 items.
So we're not doing a okay, so we'll just do the motion then to receive and file out deliberation at our next regular meeting of November 15th. Is that acceptable? Yeah. Okay. I have a motion.
Sorry.
We would like to have direction on the council's, how is this board give the recommendations from the council? If you are accepting the recommendations from the council, then it will be into that wording will be in the package for the next meeting. If you're not accepting the changes presented by the PAC, then you have to vote on that.
Okay. So how should that motion read? We're accepting the recommend. It's going to be a positive motion. So we're
I suggest that the council adopts the recommendations as proposed by PAC and strike the previous motion. And then if there's any disagreement with those can be part of the amendment to the motion. So for example, somebody objects to number 5, that can be pulled out and defeated.
Okay.
So try to see if there's an agreement to adopt all, and then if not, allow each one that is causing an issue.
Okay.
David, is that?
Is that what chapter? Okay, so the motion on the table would be that council adopts the, all recommendations as proposed to PAC. Have a motion. Thank you, Councilor McIntosh Lawrence. You have a second. Thank you, Councilor Balcom. Any discussion on the motion?
So the language that you just said was to accept the recommendations made to PAC?
Made by, as proposed by.
Okay, perfect, sorry.
There's no discussion, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Stephen.
Perfect.
Is there a second motion?
We have to close.
Oh, right, now we got
Close the hearing.
Sorry, I don't have my usual cheat sheet in front of me, I'm going free from it tonight. So I will close the hearing on amendments to zoning bylaw number 122.
Perfect.
Okay. We good? Is that Rbcc correct?
The only thing you should just have in the record that nobody, so the speaking for or against 3 times.
Normally we just have no one show, no one email.
Okay, let the record reflect that no one registered to speak and we had no emails for or against.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we're on to item 8, minutes of previous meeting. Item 8A, the motion would be that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of October 12th, 2021 as presented. Deputy Mayor Toole, we have a second. Thank you, Councilor Bellin. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Item 8B, email poll 4 Bay Road. The motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield ratify the email poll
Regarding 4 Baby Road.
regarding 4 Bay Drive of October 13th, 2021.
So move.
Thank you, Councilor Balcom. You have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. And, item 9, unfinished business. There being none, we'll move on to item 10. Bylaws. Item 10A. Yes,
David, I'm a little confused by what's being asked here in 10A. To me, you've dealt
It
with
should have been part of item 11B.
item 11B.
11B.
Item 11B is the River Valley Community Center.
For the hearing.
Oh, so we already dealt with it.
Very good.
Okay.
Good to keep a reference to it being dealt with.
Okay. So
Okay.
we addressed it.
Okay. So we just move on to 11?
Yeah.
All right. I'm good with that. Okay. Item 11A, new business recommendations. 11A is Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And the motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield adopt the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as presented and approve its implementation. We have a, that's very apropos, Councilor McIntosh Lawrence, I have a second. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Any comments on the motion?
We'll do master plan. the website for everybody to see.
Your worship, if I might make two related on the independent. Yeah, I've already spoken with the recreation director about sharing that with the stakeholder groups who will participate, and we're invited, and that yes, we will be putting it on the website. And your worship, if I could just amend the motion that you put forward.
Yeah.
And just suggest a Game Protect Council that implementation subject to monies being available, or some such thing. Otherwise, it becomes a thing that we could just end up coming before council saying, no, here's the resolution, you have to give us the money. And there are other realities at play, tensions in play when it comes to revenue. So this would just be a means of ensuring that council has discretion in the future, either overspend or underspend, according to the circumstances.
Yeah, that makes sense, particularly looking at the circumstances we're facing.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, there'll be some hard decisions in the future. So can I have an amended, someone, we have to get the first motion before we put up?
No, you just say, and add to the, whatever it was I said.
Okay, so the motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield adopt the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as presented and approve its implementation subject to monies being available.
That's right.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. And, Jim, are you willing to still second that?
Yes, I will.
Perfect, thank you very much. So I know we talked a fair amount about Parks and Rec Master Plan before, but, you know, this is sort of a really important part of our strategic plan going forward. This is a big moment for us adopting this Parks and Rec Master Plan. I know that we've all been waiting for it and working on it and looking forward to it. And so now we have this long-term strategy that we can use as a guide to develop in our future Parks and Rec going forward. And we've all talked about how important it is. It's not just a tool to retain our residents, but it's a tool to attract new residents. And that speaks to our first pillar from our strategic plan, which is population growth to achieve financial sustainability. So, and the fact that it's all built upon our strategic vision is really huge. It's all meshed, it's all planned, it's all working together. And I know it seems like we have a lot of plans going, but we need these roadmaps together. And I also want to point out that there was really extensive public participation and engagement process throughout all of these. And the people that live here, the stakeholder groups, the community groups, they all showed really strong support for this process and for continued and further investment in parks and recreation going forward. So I think that's this is a big moment for all of us. Have any further comments or discussion on the motion? Okay. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you again to staff for pulling this through to completion. Okay, so we're on to 11B. Which is
Just come back to later.
sorry, I was trying to pull up the right thing here. So this is River Valley Community Center. And the motion on the table is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield approve as a condition of funding to the River Valley Community Center, at the expense of the town, that a strategic plan as per the proposal from RC Strategies at a cost of $12,302 plus applicable taxes is completed. Have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. May I have a second? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Any questions or discussion on the motion? John?
Your Worship, just like to say that, Rbcc Strategies became aware of a need for something like this for our Rbcc. My own observation from my position as CEO was the need for something like this to help Rbcc be clear about its mandate and what it's doing. And I do think this does fulfill one of the roles that we have, providing leadership. We're not asking the Rbcc to pay this. We're going to do that. Further, I'd just like to suggest then that I just lost my train of thought. Yeah. Anyways, we think this is very much needed, and the timing why we're bringing this forward now rather than say during the budget is that we'd like to see this completed as soon as possible. There's a current book there that has the purpose and the vision of our Rbcc clarified for the next AGM of the board, so that they understand why they're getting on board and why they're participating and what they're building. Because there seems to be some ambiguity around that on the board. So we're just looking for, just like we're sorting out through our Parks and Rec strategic plan clarity about our role in the community, we're asking the same from one of our major partners who we do contribute significant funding to.
Thank you, John. And in the Parks and Rec master plan that we just adopted, one of the strategic pillars is partnership. Mm-hmm. And so this speaks to that. Any further, Jim?
Just a question. We're offering this to the board of the Rbcc. Is anybody on the board aware that this is going to be occurring?
Yeah, so I have talked to members of the executive, not all of them, but I've talked to key people, and they're aware that I would be making this suggestion to council.
And at the end of the day, it would be that board that would make the decision whether or not to accept and implement.
Yeah, and then, part of the condition ought to be whether or not they implement it, or we could defer that to next year, because they do need the money. But it should be a condition if they're going to receive funding, they have to go through this process. I know it's a bit heavy-handed. However, I think it's really the only tool that we have at our disposal. Rbcc is a very lean operation. I don't really see them having excess money. We just went through the budget tonight. They don't have a lot of extra money. And for us to do this, I think that at the end of the day, it's the best thing, not just for Rbcc or council, but also for the community.
Correct.
We've done that before with,
Sorry?
we did a study, it wouldn't be like this strategic plan, but we had I don't even know when, but it has to be close to 10 years ago, where they looked at what Rbcc operated as, and council tied it into the monies we provided. And they came up with a summer program as a result of that.
Have any other questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 11C, 140 George Street. This is quite a motion. Okay. The motion is whereas David Sowerby, being the owner of the property located at 140 George Street, Bay-Westfield, NB, PIN number 000773770, and whereas the condition of the property contravenes subsections 190.01, bracket 1, 190.01, bracket 1.1, and 190.01, bracket 2 of the Municipalities Act, as adopted by the Dangerous and Unsightly Premises Bylaw number 115. And whereas, in compliance with section 190.01, bracket 3 of the Municipalities Act, David Taylor, Development Officer for the Town of Bay-Westfield, issued letters by mail on June 30th, 2020, September 21st, 2020, April 15th, 2021, August 11th, 2021, advising the owner to have the bus removed. And whereas the notice to comply, Form 1, was served on the owner of the property on September 9th, 2021 by post server. And whereas the owner failed to observe the notice to comply and did not request an appeal of the contents of the notice within the specified time frame being 14 days. And whereas the owner failed to effect the remedy sought in the notice to comply within the 30 days specified for doing so. And whereas on October 18, 2021, the Department of Finance was notified that the town of Bay-Westfield intends to undertake the cost of removing the bus located at George Street and will make a claim against the owner to recover the expense with confirmation by the Department of Finance has been received. It is hereby resolved as follows. The town of Bay-Westfield authorizes Loyalist Towing Limited to proceed with the removal of the bus showing license plate L132796 from the property located at 140 George Street, PIN number 000777370 for the estimated amount of up to $1,500 plus HST. Pursuant to sections 190.04(1)A, 190.04(1)A.1, and 190.04(1)B of the Municipalities Act. May I have a motion? Thank you. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, there a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. John, would you speak to this motion, please?
This predates some of our longest serving staff here, this particular issue. And this has also been to the courts in 2006. It's now at the point where you can finally take action. And I'll defer this to Mr. Taylor if he has anything further to add. And I do have a question for Mr. Taylor, Your Worship, if that's all right, once he adds anything to the summary.
So there is a difficulty with removing the bus because it's been there so long, sunk into the ground, and so it wasn't able to get multiple quotes on it. Willis Towing has the equipment to be able to do it. In order to do it, they underneath the bus to put things through the back of the wheels. But I think they gave us a really good price though.
So I just like to say, this is an estimate. Does the legislation say we have to have a firm up to, because here in the recommendations it's up to, wouldn't it be better said to be estimated at $1,500?
You can leave it up to, they've estimated 3 hours of work. I don't think it's critical if they come in at 3.5 hours or whatever. The pricing is really a good base. And the actual cost is what we end up. The first part of the process is that we have to make every conceivable effort to gain the money back from the property owner directly. Failing that, having notified the Department of Finance, we then can make an application to the province to have that paid to us directly from the province, and the outstanding amount would be placed on their property tax bill.
Do we need to make that amendment to the motion?
I would feel more comfortable for the estimated amount of $1,500. I won't ask you to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
So if we could amend that last part of the motion to be for the estimated amount of $1,500 plus HST.
That's right.
Is that acceptable to the mover and seconder? We have any further questions on the motion, John?
Can you give more quotes, or is that possibly more quotes each time, or no? Quotes for the approval?
That's what I indicated, because the bus, it's not just picking up a vehicle. There's lots of companies out there that will come to take a car or a boat or trailer, but getting someone that has the basic capacity to take the bus is limited.
mean, the tire's not full of air or something.
Sorry?
The tire's not full of air or something more difficult.
It's actually sunk into the ground.
Yeah, and the gas may be leaking too, but you don't know it, so. Oh, yeah.
Your worship, just another comment. Would we require an amendment to have the motion read without the license plate? I guess stated differently, would the tow truck driver be obliged to confirm that it's plated with that? And that would slow things down?
It's been identified with the plate. If the owner should decide to just remove the plate, it doesn't remove the fact that the bus is still there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Do we have any further questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Thank you. Now we're on to item 11D, which is the Cenotaph project. And so this was added after the presentation.
Can I dismiss?
Yes.
Don't forget. Thanks.
Okay, so the motion is to permission for the Bay-Westfield Cenotaph project to move forward and to provide the committee with a written approval from the town of Bay-Westfield.
Can we do a simpler motion?
Sure.
The council of the town of Bay-Westfield authorized the mayor to sign a letter of support for the Grand Bay-Westfield region's proposed cenotaph.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, John. Do we have a second? Deputy Mayor Toole. It's asked the first and last name today. I just want to highlight again just, all the work that went into this project by the committee, and it's really, it looks like it's going to be beautiful, and it seems like they've already used the community lens framework to develop the project by looking at it from all different viewpoints. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, item 12, bills for payment.
Is it saying that?
All right.
Keep in mind.
As we were saying, it's right to be worried that we were going to forget about it. Okay, all good. All right. So the motion 12 is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve total bills for payment in the amount of $88,604.25. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. We have a second. Thank you, Councilor Bailman. Any questions on the motion? Whoever, everybody looks at
Number
Councilor
32.
McIntosh.
Number 32, closing line.
Right. Councilor Bailman, did you have a question?
Number 32,
Number 32, Mark's Commercial.
yes.
See? What's your question?
What was it for?
What is it for?
For food, clothes, or?
That, John, do you know which one that's for? It's
We'll have to, yeah, it's for the development officer and transportation.
Oh, I don't.
So it's an annual thing that's given out to everyone.
Okay. And, number 63 and 64, the,
63 and
yeah,
64.
the weed man.
Weed man.
I'm gonna have to turn that over to the recreation director.
Your worship, that's for our integrated pest management program. Weed man looks after that for us, and that would be various properties that we had, fall chlorations, soil testing. And I believe that's it.
Oh, thank you.
That's it. Thank you, Councilor Bellman. Do we have any other questions? Councilor McIntosh Lawrence?
Just two. Number 6, the audio scene films, was that for a movie night in the summer?
Yeah, and that was actually a sponsored one. The town's been reimbursed for that one.
Oh. And 48 janitorial services, is that multiple buildings in the town?
Yeah, that's for all the,
For all?
Yeah.
And that's a monthly?
yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions on the motion? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 13, consent agenda. 13A is letter from the Canadian Mental Health Association of New Brunswick. Item 13B is Halloween guidance from the province of New Brunswick. Item C is the Government of New Brunswick vaccination policy update. And with item C, I need a motion for the consent agenda first. Or we
need a motion.
I have a motion to accept the consent agenda. Thank you, Councillor Malcolm. We have a second. Councillor Dolan, thank you. Do you have any questions on the motion? I know that with item C, I would like to ask staff to come back with an updated recommendation on our pandemic mitigation policy. The province has asked us to align our municipal workforce vaccination policies with those adopted by the province and the federal government.
Can I just ask quickly what that Halloween guidance was that was received?
Yeah, it was released by the province just a few days ago. And I believe
This afternoon.
was it this afternoon?
Sorry,
Yeah, and I believe it's on our website now. Is it? Is it on our
Sure.
Yeah, we share it on social media. So it's basically it's guidance provided by the government of New Brunswick and to help everybody celebrate Halloween in a safe manner by following public health guidelines.
Perfect.
So that's what that is. Do we have any other questions on the consent agenda? And do you have a direction you can go?
Do you want me to come back and align our pandemic mitigation policy with the province? The federal government is mandatory vaccine.
Correct, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. Item 14, council reports. Start with Deputy Mayor Toole.
I don't have to do too much. I think all I wanted to highlight was just to mention that after our last council meeting, there was a special meeting the day after on Wednesday, I believe it was the 13th. And we had a presentation from Envision St. John. So anybody who wanted to tune in, usually watches council meetings, maybe not have been aware of that, it's actually a great presentation to watch from Paula Hicks, the CEO, just to talk about what Envision St. John does and what they can bring to our community.
Thank you. Councilor McIntosh Lawrence?
Yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks. We all got together, council and mayor all got together one Saturday morning to review our individual evaluations of the CAO, and then we combined them and presented those results to him. He's doing very well. October 14th, I attended a virtual seminar for healthy seniors. It was a 2.5-hour seminar. There were 10 presenters. It was really quite amazing the way it was presented. There were 10 presenters in 2.5 hours, and it was very well run. And there were issues everywhere from hearing issues for seniors to art for seniors, technology for seniors. So there was a lot of good information in that. We had an Rbcc board meeting October 19th. The main takeaways from that were fundraising and grant applications for Rbcc, as well as the change in the COVID protocols and how Rbcc is keeping up on those. Another highlight was I finished my Indigenous Canada course. That was a 12-week course with 1 course per week and a test. So that finished on October 17th. That was really an eye-opening experience. And I think the most exciting thing was, I think I mentioned a few weeks ago about an initiative, Community Inclusive Network. So we had our first actual board meeting last week, and it's actually called the Fundy Regional Community Network. So the 3 priorities are mental health, food security and transportation. And right now, we're mainly working on transportation. There is a program already available, it's called Dial. So that's for anyone in the area that may have issues getting to medical appointments, the pharmacy, groceries. So you can, there's a website you can go to, it's called ndcommunitytransit.com, and you can book a ride anywhere from Sussex to St. Stephen to Cambridge Narrows. You can log on there, fill out a form, and it's 41 cents a kilometer, but they'll take you anywhere you want to go if you have any transportation needs.
Thank you. Councillor Day?
Well, I attended the same workshop as Stephanie on the aging population, and I'm going to be participating with the age-friendly group for looking at Fredericton's updated plan and how they're going to move forward, which will help us with our own committee as we move forward. And then I had 3 days last week of teleconferencing, which I rather enjoyed because it wasn't like I had to get on a plane and go anywhere and then have to try to find a place to stay and the whole 9 yards. It was wonderful to be able to sit there with your morning coffee and learn about climate change and net zero by the 2050. I have a lot of homework to do, that's all I can say, and there's a lot of things that we were shared with from different municipalities across Canada and lots of great ideas. So it's just trying to sort through it all and pull it all together. But it was good.
Thank you, Councillor Day.
Nothing before for me.
Councillor Bell?
Yes, Your Worship. This Wednesday afternoon, I will be in Fredericton representing Grand Bay-Westfield Council on at the annual meeting of the Municipal Pension Board. And next Monday will be another PAC meeting. I don't think we'll be bringing forth as many amendments for change or whatever. I don't know what's on the agenda yet, but that's next Monday night. And I will speak to Councilor Bellmans and myself on this next item. We are very, very anxious to see the final report for that EDP is doing for us on economic development, and in particular on our pillar, which is very much related, and that is population growth. Once we see the report, we can, with the CAO's assistance, identify what the opportunities are, and that what we will then be doing is creating the committee and populating that committee with the right skill sets of people to help implement some of those recommendations. So we're anxious for that.
Yes, as are we all. Thank you, Councillor Beltram. And so that just leaves me. As usual, I've been all over the place. One of the more notable things that I spent some time doing in the last couple of weeks was I spoke at the DEC, which is the District Education Council. For those who don't know, those are the elected representatives that represent the areas in ASC South. There are a number of new members on the DEC this year, and they are in the process now of stating their capital priorities for 2022. So I felt it was important for the town of Grand Bay to be represented to the new DEC members and just talk a little bit about our school priorities, why it's important, because some of the new members may not know the history, they may not know the need, they may not know our priorities. So I spoke to them and I talked a lot about how the empiric evidence shows that having rooms in the learning spaces and good condition is crucial for students to have good academic results, that the condition of the school directly impacts the performance of the students, and how the conditions that we have now for our students are not equitable when you look at what's available across the province. So that was important, and I went there with the support of our MLA. Wasn't able to attend, but he did provide me some words to share with the members of the District Education Council. So that was important. Just like everybody else, we spent several days in budget prep meetings. We spent a lovely Saturday together doing our performance evaluation for our very valued CAO. We spent a lot of time trying to deal with the fallout of the community funding and equalization grant, and I'll continue to work on that going forward. I was part of the Parks and Rec Master Plan Steering Committee, so I was involved in the final presentation. Not the ones there was another one to the steering committee last week, and so that was even more exciting than the one here was, which was the first time I heard all of it. And I just did want to take a minute and congratulate Councillor McIntosh Lawrence for being the first member of council to complete the Indigenous Canada course. You know, back when we made our resolutions, you know, and education of council and our staff was one of the resolutions that we made, and it speaks volumes that you're the first one to finish. So congratulations there. Our CAO also recommended that I mention to the members of the public who might be watching that we're all wearing masks here today because we did have members of the public attending and speaking. So in abundance of caution and following public health recommendations, we're all masked up tonight. So hopefully you can still hear us, and that's pretty much it for my report tonight. So now that those are done, item 15, business arising from the committee of the whole, there being none, we move on to item 16, which is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Councillor Bellman. Do I have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Good night, everybody.